Well, everyone, welcome. This is Derek Padala from RME, and I'm sitting here with Michael Angelo Batio. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, Derek, I'm doing great.
So, Mike, tell us what you've been up to the last several months.
Well, once I found out, that, with COVID, that it really set in, my agent had three separate tours for me, one in May, and then one in July. And then I was supposed to be on tour now, and then a tour in Europe starting November 10th. So everything got postponed in the United States. And what I started doing is live streams immediately. And I thought, the best thing that I can do to keep out there is just to go online. And plus, I had a new album that was supposed to be released earlier this year, and we were worried about the what was going to happen. It's all unknowns this year. So we decided to release it anyway, and it's done really well. And so I've been doing live streams, shred collabs with a lot of major guitar players. We have a new one coming out that I wrote the music, and I have Gus G that played with Ozzy, and Jeff that plays with Smashing Pumpkins. His name is Schroeder, and then Bill Hudson, who plays with TSO. So we're all together on this collab, and I've been doing this a lot, and there's just so much going on. I'm actually busier now, even though not leaving my place, than I was touring. At least when I'm touring, I can come home and just do nothing, But now it's like every day is something.
And everybody's streaming now, so
Yes,
we
yes.
all had to learn overnight how to do it and do it well. And as an artist, what are some of the challenges that you first encountered with streaming? Since that's sort of like what everybody's trying to do right now to stay in front of their fans.
Yeah, one of the things that was the hardest is just to get it so the fidelity's right, so the look of the cameras, everything, because all the years of doing workshops and public speaking made me perfect for online. And so because my personality comes through on the screen as well as live, and I never really thought that would be part of the skill set. I mean, a lot of times when I'm in concert, the singer's doing all the talking. Hello, Cleveland, and I'm just standing back playing. So, but one of the biggest issues was really the technical side of it, and we do talk about the baby face, but we've used it to interface everything.
Right.
That's how I've used it, and but that it's really been the technical side, and also so many people are online. Sometimes the Wi-Fi, goes down, so you're dealing with a lot of things that you just can't control.
Yeah, now you're the host and the player and the MC, and you have to do
That's
it all.
right.
I've seen your videos. You do a great job, and
Oh, thanks.
lots of people are checking it out and stuff. And the one thing I noticed is it sounds great. I mean, considering we all have to, eventually the product ends up on social media and YouTube and stuff. So it's always
Right.
interesting to me to compare everybody's sound and like, wow, I wonder how they're doing it. So tell us a little bit about like what's your studio like? What do you do? I know you use an RME BabyFace, and you just
Yes.
finished some albums with it, so we'll talk about that too. But like, what's your approach to doing this?
Well, I have two approaches. One, if it's not as intense, where I'm playing different guitars and doing sort of like an online workshop, I can actually use my phone and the iPhone 11 Pro. But a lot of times I bring in an engineer. And so what we do is, he's really, his job is to make sure it all works. And so, we'll literally mic up one of my amps. We'll run it through the baby face, and then we run it from there. He's got a simple program called Reaper in his laptop. So we run everything through that. And then there's another program that gets it out online. And he has access to my Facebook page and YouTube page. So we've multi-streamed, we've done a lot of things. So, but that's the basic setup. I have him come out, and, we have good lighting too. I mean, this is my home studio, and you've been here before. It's
Yeah,
really nice, and,
yeah.
and it's big. It's like a size of like a good size apartment. And so, we have everything set. Like I have the back line set up. The only thing I think I'm going to change is I might make it all black, the color of metal. I was thinking about that, because I'm seeing too many nice looking squares here. I was actually, we put up the black background. It looks pretty cool. So I was
Yeah.
actually thinking of painting, getting black carpeting for the floor to make it look more metal.
How much recording do you do? Like before you were traveling a lot and doing a lot of clinics and live shows and stuff. So like, do you get a lot of time to record in your studio, or is that more now than before? Or
I, I, my life revolves around touring, recording. And I mean, I've done this my whole life. I just released my 15th solo album, and that's not even counting the major label bands I was in or the guest appearances. I'm constantly recording. I've had this home studio, being signed to multiple major labels and working with big producers. I understood analog and I understood hardware. Like I can patch up my own studio if literally. And so, and then, when it went to computer based, I just went along with the trend. And I was digital very early on when it was still tape, when
yeah,
ADATs. And so my studio's grown, but I'm constantly writing music. Now the thing that I love the most are demos can actually be used for real albums because you have the ability to change. Everything's on a grid. If I don't like a part, I can take it out, and it's kind
right.
of like writing a Word doc,
Yeah, you don't
like
have to start
writing.
from scratch.
Exactly. And now, the tones I use, it can be keeper sounds, especially if we use software. Not, I like to combine live amps with software. I don't like one or the other anymore. I like them both together.
Right.
So I find that, especially with the software side of it, we can record and you can reamp, you can do whatever you want. But right now, I've done I've done 14 albums in my studio. I've done so many guest appearances I can't even imagine. And now we film video here. We do everything. So whether I'm on tour and I take a break or now, I'm constantly recording. And
Now
so
you
and
said
it's
you
mhm,
said you blend software tones with amp tones. Do you do that
yes.
like where you record the amp as a track and then you do it the software and then you blend them, or do you do it live that way? Like which do you prefer to do?
What I do is the software first. So I get it dialed in like exactly the way I want it. If there's and that's the beauty. I mean, I grew up in the era of live performances, one take. So it's not like I can't do that. But I found I can compose and record at the same time. It's something that you could never do before. In the quote old days, you would rehearse, everything would be down, you go in the studio, you record. It's completely different now. I rehearse, write, and record at the same time. So I get the bed tracks down, and I get the rhythm guitars down with software, and so that's it. And I'll usually record 2 tracks. Then I'll come back when I'm satisfied that this is it. Then I'll bring in the real amps and I use it for reinforcement. There's something about a microphone going to an amp that it's real. The software's so good nowadays. It's 99%, but there's something that it just adds when you blend them together. It adds
Yeah,
this extra
right.
fullness, and that's what I do. And
So that's really fascinating. I think people, who haven't considered that approach actually will be pretty blown away about going about their music that way. What about like audio interfaces? Now, I mean, we love that you're using RME and we'll talk about that, but like in general, what's been your journey with audio interfaces and digital recording and things like latency? I mean, I'm sure you've had to run into all of that throughout your career since digital, and I'm sure you have some interesting stories.
well, I started it in the ADAT days. Now, one of the things that I didn't understand with early digital is that 16-bit 44.1 doesn't have the amount of information as analog. So I couldn't understand why I would record this track. It would sound awesome. And then you start putting tracks together and it sounded terrible. The more tracks I added, the more greedy the recording sounded. And I would solo up these tracks, they sound amazing. So what I did is I said, I need to learn about this. And I took an engineering course. And what I found is like if an analog waveform is like this, a nice smooth wave, 16-bit 44 is like a staircase. So instead of having this analog nice wave, chunks of audio information are not there. See, now with 24-bit 32 floating, the digital waveform is drawn so detailed, it's replaced analog, but back then it didn't. So that was my first journey. I couldn't understand why it sounded terrible. And then I got a digital console. Whoa. Okay, now you've been in my studio. I feel like Okay, so I have one company that's got a hard disk,
Right.
24 track. I've got another company that's got the board. I do everything. I interface it correctly. I'm not stupid. I've been recording my whole life.
Yeah, you know signal flow well now, I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I could also I'd be recording like what? Clicks, pops. And so, and being, like quote famous unquote, so I get the rep down from the hard disk company. Goes, well, it's the board. I
Yeah.
get the rep down
It's their
from the board.
fault.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's their fault. So there, and then I went insane. And then I said, okay, maybe, and then I started thinking, what is wrong here? Maybe it's the cable, because I'm a cable maniac anyway. I have to use the highest quality cables when I record, and every part of the signal chain has to be right. This is what I've learned over the years. Even like, unless you're in $1 million studio, even patch bass, I know how to hook them up. I didn't like them because it interfered with the signal flow. So I really understand it. And so I got insane about it. And so now I've got two pieces of hardware that are really expensive and they don't work together. They
Yeah.
will not work. And so I actually called up a company and got gold tip digital. This like one cable is $400. And so I was like, in order to go down the road, we must have a brand new road, a
Yeah.
perfect road to drive on. It still didn't work. So now let's gravitate.
$400 a cable later.
Yeah, yeah, and it took three for 8 tracks of 24 track, 8, 8, and 8, 1 to 8, 9 to 16, 17 to 24. So I spent $1,200 on cable. It meant nothing. And so what would happen is I'd have to re-record, because I'd be playing, and all of a sudden I'd hear a digital pop, and it would actually show up on the
Yeah.
computer. And so anyway, now we get to software. So I'm like, okay, now we're in the software phase. Interfaces. Here's where the BabyFace comes in. I tried other companies. Latency. Now, I'm known as I can play really fast, really articulate. I couldn't get the groove. There were milliseconds off with latency. And so I actually, for a while, went back to the old hard disk system, used my $400 cables. I would record there and transfer it in the DAW system, because there was no latency, because it's old school, and it was
Right.
only a stand. And what I learned is, don't hook up old digital hardware with other digital hardware. It went digital analog board just for playback. So, and then, and this was going on for a couple of years. And then when I got the BabyFace, zero latency. I mean, it was the first time I could really record. Now I could use other interfaces, but that latency started to build up. Even when it was good, like on a track, the more tracks you added, again, it wasn't working properly. And it was.
So
it
you would
was
record a take. You were like, okay, I was able to get that take in. There was a
Yeah.
little bit of latency, but I'll live with it. Then you add another part, same thing, and it starts to compound on itself. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a nice, desktop computer. It's a server, there's a lot of RAM, and,
Right.
now I've got solid state drive. So it's killer. But I found that stacking tracks, again, it taxes the system, and the interface it was getting less and less accurate as you go down the line. And so, again, when I switched to the BabyFace, first of all, it's super easy to use, sounds great. And I felt like, okay, here's a piece of hardware that connects properly with other hardware, because really when you're dealing with digital recording, the more things you add, it's gotta travel. And that traveling part of it is what screws things up.
Right.
And I've seen it, throughout my whole career, but now it's so easy to record. I mean, I have everything set up. I have a live amp set up going into the BabyFace through the XLRs. And then, I've got two inputs. So I have one going just guitar in, so I can use the software. And I have
Right.
another one using like boxes, hardware, like say like an old Marshall preamp or something like that. So, or let's say if I want to use keyboards that aren't MIDI, like I play piano. So, I have all these different hardware keyboard sounds. And I mean, there's thousands of sounds. I've got 3 different hardware racks of them. So then, I plug that in. So it works amazing. And
Do you
like,
ever split your guitar like to one into the BabyFace and then one into the amp? on the same take and then record the mic pre and the software at the same time, or do you still kind of do those separately because you just want to?
Yeah, I do it separate because one of the things, because the speed of sound is slow, and sonic booms and all that, I don't want latency with the actual signal itself
Right.
because, and so just the fact that a microphone is in front of a speaker, that, there's that 3-foot rule that I learned in engineering. You can have phasing from that. And
Right.
I've kind of experimented with that where it starts to sound flangy, but it's a really good idea. What I could probably do too is you record it and then you just move the track
Yeah,
slightly
I
to
mean,
line it up.
that's the beauty of
Uh,
digital recording. Everyone, sometimes these artifacts are what we're
uh,
going for, and sometimes we don't want it. So I was just curious, how,
yeah.
how easy is it to use the babyface? Would you say to people who are looking at the options out there, is it something, is it daunting, or is it fairly easy to use?
It's super easy. And being a guitarist, I don't like a lot of knobs on amps. And so I like to think in simple terms, like in my head, I don't like visual chaos and I don't like clutter in my brain. So it's super easy. That's the thing. I mean, we were able to have an engineer come over here, set up his laptop. He's young guy. He's really dialed in, and we just hooked up the babyface. Boom, it works. And
Nice.
it's super easy to use. And I'm not just saying that. And people that know me, I'm not just trying to say something that I have to believe it. And it's plugged in right now. I mean, every time I turn on my studio, that's everything goes through it. Even that with I have Apple, so even the iTunes goes through the babyface into a external board, for
What are your favorite features of the babyface? Is there anything in particular, or just?
well, I think there's a few things. One, the sound is really good. I've made a science of signal chain. I'm really, I mean, I used to sit down and AB cables. I would
Oh
AB like
man.
AB a tenth of a dB. I've done this throughout my entire career because, like when I play leads, I have to have a certain singing sound, and I've even messed with where I play on the guitar when I'm recording a certain part because it sounds a little different. I mean, I've really gotten into the nuances and into the microzone of it. But so I've AB'd the babyface audio wise against other audio interfaces. It sounds great. Okay, so that's first. Latency, I don't even think about it. It doesn't even exist for me anymore. And so, I keep it on all the time. So it's
Just
been,
works.
it just works. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's easy to use if I want to make a phantom power or hook up a condenser mic, or you just go in and hit a switch. I mean, the software's super easy to use.
What do you think of the software, the Total Mix software? Do you use it much, or is it not something you particularly need for what you're doing?
Well, I use it, but not in a mixing way. One of the things I've learned over the years is that my limitation is I'm a really good engineer for tracking. I
Right.
understand tracking, but mixing I think is an art form. It's
Yeah,
kind of like
I would agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, like a director of a movie doesn't edit the movie. Editing in a movie to me is mixing a song.
Yeah.
In other words, you put all the pieces together. So I always have outside engineers mix and master
Right.
and it works. And plus, it's a lot less stress. I don't wake up in the middle of the night going, "Should I turn the bass up 1/10 of a
How's it going to
dB?"
sound through these speakers? And what if we put it through this? Or you hear it on an IEM? And yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, yeah,
What,
it's too much stress.
one of the biggest challenges I find with tracking is just getting the monitoring right, like having the flexibility to monitor the software, monitor if I want to hear the dry input, and being able to set up headphone mixes. So, what do you think a total mix for that type of thing? Since tracking is all about monitoring as you're playing and being able to get inspired by what you're hearing during the take.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I feel it's great. And what I've done too, the beauty of having software and using the babyface, it's small, so it's portable. So I have a really nice laptop. I can go on the road and I've got, it's not all the plugins that I have in my, studio computer, but I can record on the road and just wear headphones. And if I need to, headphone distribution, I've actually even got an old school hardware piece, for headphone distributions. I had the Illinois State like girls choir come down in the studio, and it wasn't the full choir. It was about 15 girls, and I
Right.
was like, I don't have enough. I don't even have enough headphones for this one. And but I think that the mixer's really good. And again, it's easy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with gear, so it's and one thing I look for is ease of use. If
Yeah.
it's too complicated, I think, well, somebody was dumb that designed this.
Well, I
I
remember when
just,
you tried it out, I was like, man, he hasn't called me. So either he's just like, darn it, I can't use this thing, or he doesn't have a problem. And when I remember calling you, you're like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like, duh, no problem, piece of cake.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm no rocket scientist, but when it comes to music and comes to this is my
Yeah.
area of expertise. But I would, yeah, if I would have said, oh, there's a latency issue, or the sound just isn't as good,
Yeah.
but I don't have that problem.
No,
And
I
I mean,
appreciate that.
I'm looking at the babyface right there, and so, but it's all set up, and I like to have a system. So if I want to, I can do MIDI keyboards for sure, in the DAW system. But a lot of times I just like to play it, and so that requires plugging into the babyface. So I've got a really nice high-end, stereo cable that I plug in. I like the feel of it,
Yeah.
and and I'm very satisfied. I mean, I
And
did my whole new record with it. I
thank
mean,
you. That's
everything.
awesome. Well, what's the name of the record?
It's called More Machine Than Man,
And is
and
that
I
one
have,
out now, or like how can
yeah,
people get that? Spotify, iTunes, all the above?
yes, everywhere. What I did was, I've had my own label for a long time, and being signed to two major labels, it gave me like an inside look at actually how the major label, machine works. And so I had a really successful record company for a long time. I was out touring. I had a way to distribute things. I had digital distribution, but I decided that's not the way to go anymore, because it's hard to sell physical CDs now, so it takes away the reason for me having my own company. So I signed with a label called Rat Pack, and they have Lynch Mob. They've got a lot of big bands. Ray Lucier from Korn, he has a band called KXM with Doug Pinnick, and it's all on Rat Pack. And so they released it in June on vinyl, CDs, cassette, and all the digital formats you mentioned. But I use the babyface on everything. And we have a guest artist, Victor Wooten, the 5-time Grammy Award
Oh
winner,
yeah, he's
played bass.
amazing.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, he's the nicest guy in the world too. He did this move I saw. He was like doing kind of his thing, and he did this art like flip of his guitar, but it wasn't a typical Richie Blackmore or Yngwie one. I don't know. I'm still watching it to figure out. It was kind of like watching Michael Jackson's Moonwalk for the first time. It's like, how the heck did he do this?
Wow.
But yeah, he was amazing. And then we used Chris Adler, who won a Grammy for Megadeth. He was Lamb of God's drummer. He did not all the drums. Unfortunately, got injured. I got in a bad motorcycle accident, but we have all the drum tracks that he could do. And then what I did is he before he got hurt, he went and actually put down hundreds of MIDI patterns. And so I was able to take samples of his kit and use his own grooves MIDI wise and do the
And
rest of the
trigger the
album
sounds.
effect.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah, it was
creative.
cool.
So I think you said earlier you actually travel with the babyface, so you found it useful on the road. It's
Oh
portable.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I'm always writing, and if I found anything, I record ideas. I mean, you can wake up in the middle of the night and you have this great idea in your head and think, I'll remember it in the morning. It's not going to happen. And so I've learned over the years to if I don't have the babyface, if I'm not in a hotel room or have access to it, I use my phone. But I found in the middle of the night, I come back from a show, and I'll just have this riff in my head, just record it, boom,
Nice.
done. Yeah, and I have hundreds of riffs like that. That's James Hetfield, I think he calls it the riff box, but he does a very similar thing where he just comes up with riffs and just files them away, and then when he goes to record, he just listens back.
Yeah, and
And
find the one he likes, or yeah, I remember playing that one time. I got to find that file.
that's right.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
and a lot.
I just
Uh-huh.
did that over the weekend. I came up with a new head to a song, and I was like, I got to record this. And I didn't even have my laptop. The battery was dead, so I grabbed my cell phone and just recorded the
Yeah,
line. I'm like, and then I listened to it back because I was playing a guitar like you're doing with no amp. I'm like, God, did it pick that up?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
um,
even uh, but
no,
I
I was
even do
just, go
great.
ahead.
No, I even do crazy things like, I'll have a microphone and I'll just tap out a groove. And, so I'll just tap something out and I'll record it. And that's how I came up with one of the songs from my new album. It's like, and the groove is just ferocious, but I had this beat. So, and so I started with the beat. I mean, there's unlimited ways, but, you know, uh, again, with the baby face, I just don't think about it. And
Yeah.
that's the way I like to work.
Yeah.
If
You
I
don't
have
want the
to,
tools to get in the way of the job itself. Yeah,
that's
I
right.
totally
I mean,
understand.
if you're a baseball player and you have to worry about the weight of your bat or something, or, a guitar player and, oh, the neck sucks, man. It's just, that's the thing. That's where I think RME has a huge advantage over a lot of other companies, just the ease of use. It works. And that's why the people, they don't want to think about it. They just want to plug it in,
Yeah.
and have it work. And that's what it does. And it
Well,
sounds
first of
amazing.
all, we want to thank you for your time today. We know you're busy. Let me ask you: is this something you would recommend to other guitar players, the Babyface? You feel pretty strongly that it would be a good choice for them?
Oh yeah, in fact, the engineer that I work with, he's in Minneapolis. He comes into the Chicago area, and he bought one. he's, he's
Well,
like,
you can't beat that. That's
yeah,
amazing. Well, thank you.
yeah, yeah. But he's told me too that he's been looking into it, and then he got a firsthand experience with it, and we've used it every time we've done live streams. So except if it's on the fly, like a couple times earlier in the year, I was on the road and I had to use my phone. But when we wanted to be, when we do the majority of them, they're with the baby face, and I have an engineer.
Oh, that's great. Well, Mike, we thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And for those who maybe not don't know where to find all your music and stuff, what are some of your web URLs so people can look you up?
Yes, my new album is released through Rat Pack Records, and it's a big label, so it's easy to find. I think it's Rat Pack USA or something, but
Okay.
just type in Rat Pack Records. I have a different website now. I owned Angelo.com forever, and I had a company out of Dubai call me and said, "We want the name," and I was like, "Oh, really?" And so anyway, we worked out a deal. It was all through escrow, all this stuff. So I have a new name for my website,
Oh yeah,
handswithoutshadows.com.
that's
Yeah,
one of
and
your songs from years ago, right? Or albums? I
that's
forget.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, both. And it was the title track from the album, Hands Without Shadows. It's the name that the Chinese gave me. They said, it's kind of like being like Chuck Norris, your hands move so fast, they do not cast a shadow. You are hands without shadows. So I've got the tattoo here.
Oh,
I
that's
wish I could.
awesome.
Yeah, so I trademarked everything, even HWS, but handswithoutshadows.com is and you can get it
Awesome.
there. Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for sharing some of your insights on stuff. We really appreciate it, and thanks for all that you do. So stay safe. Have a wonderful day. I know you're going to LA later this month and going to be pretty busy with your new guitar line and stuff. So that's awesome. So thanks again.
Okay, thanks, Derek.
All
See ya.
right.